All right. So I'll
I
go
don't
ahead
plan
and
for run.
start.
I don't plan to run for office anyway, so it's all good.
Good. So I guess opening up, I was interested in hearing a little bit about, we have sort of three sections of questions: background about who you are, what you do, how you got to where you are, and what you do. And then I figured, Scott, if it was all right with you, we could segue into some of the questions that you might have about, production and skills and things like that.
Yeah.
And then if we have, sort of follow-up questions more specific to any intersections that come out in the conversation between what you're doing and the curriculum that we have in the program, that will be sort of how we'll close it out. So does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, sounds perfect. I tend to ramble, so if I get too rambly, you just shut me down and move on.
Well, no, I mean, I think we're here to hear you, not us. So. So the first thing is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to do what you do?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Andy Vanhook, imaginative producer, co-founder at Appeal Production. We're a video marketing firm based in Harrisonburg, and we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary next month in about 2 weeks. So pretty excited about that. Going way back, I went to Radford to college, and I hadn't picked a major and wasn't doing so well after my first semester. And my mom called me when I went back after Christmas and said, you need to pick a major by the end of the week or you're no longer going to be enrolled in college. And I'd always been kind of interested in media. And I was like, all right, there's a media program at Radford. I'll declare that as my major and then we'll figure it out. And I'll also was like, yeah, I loved, at the time, Sports Center was like a big thing for me. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be on camera, talking sports and making bad jokes on 11 p.m. Sports Center. That was like my goal. So I started going through the classes, and I took my first reporting class. And the way they had it set up at Radford was it was a lot more news-based learning. So they had the classes set up as a reporter section and a production section, and they paired you with a producer. You went out and got stories that would air on a weekly student-produced news program. And it was pretty cutthroat for a bunch of 20-year-olds, and I wasn't really enjoying it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to live my life this way. And I was participating in another program that was just a student media program that was a TV show. We did a lot of little skits and interviews around campus and that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed that, was doing more production on that side. So I changed my concentration in the media studies major from journalism to video production. And that's kind of got me started on the path. I moved to Harrisonburg a year after I graduated, worked at TV3 for about 6 months, went to work for another video production company at the same time. A friend of mine was working there, and I went to, he told me they were growing and were looking to hire people. I went and met with them, chatted. They were like, hey, yeah, we like you. We'd love to give you a job, but we started this company 3 months ago and we're paying your buddy in beer. So we don't have any more beer budget and we can't hire you. So I told them I would be happy to go on shoots, carry equipment, set up lights for free whenever I was available and they needed it, just so I could get some experience, get my foot in the door. Did that for a while, wound up moving to part-time, then full-time, paid for them, and I wound up working for them for the better part of 10 years before the owner closed the company at the end of January 2011. So going on 10 years. And then me and my two business partners, we all worked there, and we're getting beer at the Artful Dodger, trying to figure out what we're going to do with life. And none of us wanted to go get real jobs. And we decided to start a company. Thought my wife was going to kill me, divorce me, kill me. I'm not sure which one was going to come first, but she was like, you've worked at a small business before. Why are you doing this? You're insane. Go get a real job. My mom encouraged me to go back to school and go into nursing. They're always looking for male nurses. My mom said, she's a nurse and teaches nursing. So, it's kind of one of those things is, we started off 10 years ago, and I've always kind of had one of those personality quirks that if you tell me I can't do something or you tell me to do something else, I'm going to try to prove you wrong. And so I've kind of done that as long as I can remember, honestly. So here we are 10 years later, and yeah, we're doing well. We had our best year ever last year in spite of COVID. And right now things are setting up pretty good for a good 2021, and hopefully it'll be better than last year. So that's kind of the synopsis, and you can ask further details and I can go into anything you wish.
Sure. Yeah. I'm interested in well, many aspects of what you said, but something that you just said at the tail end sort of caught my ear. You said last year was a good year.
Yeah.
Why do you think? I mean, I have my own theories, but rather than like a what's in my head, I'm interested in what your take is as somebody sort of working in this digital media field. Um, why do you think things were worked out pretty well for you, other than the obvious? You guys run your company well, you do good work, things like that. Do you think there was anything particular about the year?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things is, I mean, it was quite a leap. I mean, we've been growing kind of incrementally every year, which has been really nice. It was it was a big leap between 19 and 20. And
Hmm.
it was somewhat surprising. At the same time, it feels like all the work we put in, it kind of finally came around and paid dividends. And there's a lot of layers to it. I think that part of it was us being very intentional about reaching out to people. We had connections at the different school systems because we'd done work with them, or I'd had friends in those places, and was like, hey, if you're not doing a graduation, we can do a virtual graduation for you. I did this, Abby reached out to me from Bridgewater. We did your all's virtual graduation last year. A previous client, Lord Fairfax Community College, did the same. And so we just started reaching out to some of these people that we had connections with and saying, this is something that we can offer, because we didn't know what was going to happen. I was expecting the bottom to fall out of business, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
That was a big reason that the previous company closed. It drug along 2 years after the real estate collapse, but it struggled in those 2 years, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So reaching out to those was very kind of proactive in that space. And then we had other clients who had people who were supposed to come visit their facilities from either overseas or from across the country, and travel bans started happening, and they were like, we need virtual tours of our place. Can you do that? So we wound up doing a bunch of those. And then a lot of people who had nonprofits who had in-person events were scrambling, still trying to raise money, and wanted to transfer it over into some sort of pre-recorded or live Zoom recorded thing. And so we assisted a lot of those folks. But the kind of the bigger piece of it is, I think we've done a really good job over the last 10 years of going out and building relationships in the community, and people understanding and knowing who we are and what we do. And the other part of that too is we've been very intentional for 10 years to not start to offer dozens of other services. We don't place ad buys. We don't do print design. We aren't designing websites. Yeah, we'll help you talk through your marketing piece within the video spectrum, but we're not going out there and figuring out what the rest of their advertising looks like. And I think that's really helped, especially when everybody had to flip to video in the span of like a week in March last year. When they thought video, they thought us. And I think that was just a branding piece, honestly, over the past 10 years, that people were like, oh, video. Oh my God, what do I do? I got to call Andy. And
I mean,
I think a lot
there's
of that was
two
part
parts
of
of
it.
that network thing that I think is really cool. Like, so one would be obviously having these connections that would reach out to you because they knew what you did. But then also, it sounds like you had a bit of a responsive reaction to people that you had worked with in the past, like saying, Abby reached out to you, but now you're like, yeah, we could do some type of virtual graduation. We could do these types of virtual tours. So it sounds like it, the way that you describe it, sort of responsive and aware of what previous clients might need. I'm interested in that process. How, as a small team, you were able to sort of, COVID hits, and as a small team of creatives and business types, figuring out what you could do as a business to respond, that sort of nimbleness. I don't want to ask for any special ingredients here, but I'm interested in sort of what the workday looked like in March, April of 2019 when you were,
Yeah.
or 2020, sorry.
No, it's all good. It was, one of my business partners, John, he was probably more in tune with COVID before anybody else. He was wearing a mask to work like 2 or 3 weeks before anybody else was really even talking about it in our office. Um, and when the governor shut the state down, we went to work on Monday, and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I kind of told you them what I told you is, if this is like the real estate bubble, this could implode relatively quickly because we don't have any other stream of income. I mean, this is what we do. We do video production, and yeah, we could do some animation work, but if we can't go on site, it might be tough. So we talked that through a little bit and really kind of charged the team with, because Bryn, she's client facing and talks to clients all the time. And, but so does everybody else in some form or fashion. But it was like, you need to really tune your ears to what they're saying. If somebody says, yeah, we're really struggling right now, or something's going on, and that's a client we typically do a good amount of work for over a given year, we need to know that so we can plan around it or figure out if there's ways that we can assist them. And I think a lot of it just comes back to, we kind of have this mentality of just trying to help our clients, honestly. And sure, it benefits us at the end of the day, but what can we do to assist them to further their business? At the end of the day, I think everybody in our place really wants our clients to succeed. And in that success, hopefully means success for us. And the virtual tour thing came about. I reached out to a couple of the, retirement communities that we've worked with, and they were like, we can't go in. Well, yeah, we know we can't go in, but we've got some other things that we can produce because we've shot for you before. Maybe we can just re-edit and have somebody come into the studio and do some on-camera work that you can still give a tour to prospective residents, but even though you can't bring them onto campus. So a lot of it was just kind of being proactive on the front end and prepping the team to prepare for the worst mentally, and then saying, think of our clients and what could we do to kind of fill some gaps that they have, and understanding, who was closing their doors to the public and wouldn't be able to do the things that they normally do to keep their business operating.
So my last question I want to ask, and then I'll kick it over to you, Scott, is I'm listening to what you're saying, strong networks, responsive, reaction, proactive reaction to client needs. What's the buzzword that circulates now is grit, right? So stick to itiveness. As you are confronting the different challenges that you're facing in this past year, and I would say in the past 10 years, what are some of the other skills or practices that you found are most helpful as you address these problems and challenges? And I would say specifically the problems and challenges presented by working with clients and working for clients. What are the things that have been most beneficial to you as a company?
So I started off behind the camera. So that's what I did for the better part of 7 years. And so I was with clients a lot. And the way the previous company did a lot of it was just me, right? I'd go out and do the shoot, light, sound, direct. You're kind of a one man band, one person band, whatever you want to call it. And so I did that for a number of years. And so I had to get some, I had to talk to clients. I couldn't just sit in a shell and just go, okay, do this. That's not what they needed. They needed somebody to help them through it, because most of these people we were working for had never done a television commercial before. And so, you needed somebody out there, and somehow I developed the skills to do that. So I think that was an important part of kind of the early pieces, as being able to develop that interpersonal relationship aspect of it. Because, we would hear people that would say, man, we really like working with you guys. The last guy who came and did a commercial for us barely even spoke. He just came in and started shooting stuff. And it's like, how do you do that? And anyway, so I think that piece is important, is really being able to develop those relationships and learn that early. And, I moved into more of a creative director role for the last 3 or 4 years that I was at the previous company. And, that was, again, that's more working with clients, understanding their needs and what they're trying to do. And when we started Appeal, we had a couple of different options on what we could do. I mean, I can shoot and edit, not super well, but I can shoot and edit. And so, Bo and John can do the same, but we essentially drew straws, and Bo wanted to edit, and he's great at it. And I'm glad that that's what he wanted to do. John really wanted to shoot, and he's great at it. And I'm glad that's really what he wanted to do. And I said, well, hell, somebody's got to go sell. And so I had, essentially I had to figure it out over the past 10 years. And I think that a lot of mistakes, I mean, there was a lot of mistakes I made along the way in that. And it's just, I didn't know it. I didn't know the sales game, what it was. I had to find myself in that, what was comfortable for me. I tried cold calling, which was terrible. I did that for a week and I thought, we're not going to survive if I've got to continue to do this. But I found my way was, especially in a community like Harrisonburg, Rockingham County, Stanton, Greater Shenandoah Valley, it's really about that network and people knowing who you are and what you do. And so I just started going to stuff. I showed up to things and I handed out business cards and, told people what I did. And at some point I started wearing more pink and more flashy colors. And because when I first started going out, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, blue blazer, cornflower blue shirt, red tie. And I look like every other banker at a business after hours at the chamber events, and was like, okay, A, I'm in a creative field, and B, I don't want people getting me confused with a banker. So I have an opportunity here to, to dress a little weirder and it also help stand out with the brand. And so that was a little part of it was, okay, I'm going to look sharp. I'm going to have a nice suit, but it ain't going to be blue. If it's blue, it's going to be like cobalt blue. You know what I mean? And I think part of it was that, and I know it's kind of a weird, quirky thing to say, but there's a way that, to me, it's really easy for creators to get lost in the art piece of it and just kind of hide behind the work, right? Oh, we do the work, we do all this stuff. Well, this is a relationship game. Business is relationships 100% of the time. And yeah, you can do good work, but if people don't want to talk to you, man, you're done. So that's the big thing for me, is that really just finding that space to where I wasn't a pushy salesperson, and I don't consider myself that way now. I felt more, I built relationships. And if somebody said, hey, we need a website, I'd connect them to a person who needed a website or who did websites, instead of trying to say that we can do that work and hack our way through it. And I really think that there was a lot of those kind of pieces there for us that helped build that along the way. And in terms of working with clients, there's a fine line, and it's taken us a while to get to really between helping them achieve their goal and not doing exactly what they want. Because it's really easy to go in and do what they want, and then when it doesn't work, they blame you and say advertising doesn't work. When you could have stood up for yourself and said, hey, this isn't going to work. We see this as a way that your customers could react and respond to what you're doing. And just paying attention to that. And that's just taking a little time to have that confidence to say, we know what the hell we're doing, without being, arrogant about it, but having that self-confidence saying, we know what we're doing, and what we do works, because we help talk it through with the clients and kind of bring them to the point of saying, yeah, it's about you, but it's not really about you. It's about the people who are going to watch this video that we produce for you, and causing them to make and do the next step, which is reach out to you to solve their problem. So anyway, but I think getting to that point it's one of those things. And again, it's what we do is subjective. So it's really hard. Bo's an artist, and he sends out a video. He thinks it's right the first time, and a client doesn't like it, and it hurts his feelings, and he's mad for a week. And, it's just, I try to temper that the best that I can. I mean, he doesn't necessarily rage against clients, but you know what I mean? He's just kind of internally dealing with it. And I think that there's this balance there to where you got to understand that you can make art. It's not necessarily going to get you paid right away. And, you're still doing client work, especially the type, what we're doing, they're paying it at the end of the day, and we can guide them to a point. But if they decide we're not doing that anymore, we have a decision to make. Okay, we can shut the project down, charge them for our time, and be done with it. Or we can say, okay, that's not what we talked about. We can continue down this path. It's going to cost you X more, and we don't think it's going to work. So, and that's not an easy conversation to have. So we're trying to I think we've done a pretty good job of setting it up to where we're all aligned on the front end. And so when they get that video the first time, they're like, man, that's pretty close to what we talked about. These are a couple of issues we see that we need tweaked, but other than that, we're good to go. So
cool. All right. Well, Scott, I know that you had some questions. I didn't know if you were interested in building off that or if you wanted to take it a different direction. But Scott, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, sure. So yeah, Andy, I think actually you've been getting at a lot of the things that I was going to ask about already, but let me just maybe ask what may be kind of a little bit more of a naive question and see how this adds to the mix of what you've been talking about. So you're in a small company, you've got a lot of people doing a lot of different things. It sounds like there's also a fair amount of overlap in some areas, at least the people that are on your team. But I'm curious, what kinds of specifically digital media skills would you expect a new hire to have? And I know that depends what they'll be doing, but are there any, sort of common things or unique things that you might look for?
For me, and I'll honestly say it's for Appeal also, is since we are a small team, you've kind of got to have that gumption to do it on your own in some aspect. And what I mean by that is we don't post for interns. Never have. We have interns every semester. And since we've started at Appeal and we've had interns, I can pick out maybe one who's not been good. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing about that is, a lot of people think, oh, post your intern job, blah, blah, blah. Well, then it just becomes a cattle call to people trying to fill a requirement. We haven't posted any, and it wasn't intentional, but we just started seeing that, well, we hadn't posted anything. The people who reach out to us are interested, are willing to do the homework to find out if there's a place where they can do an internship around, and real willing to reach out and ask. That to me already says, all right, they're self-motivated. That's a big, big win when I've got a small team and I'm trying to manage a lot of things, and everybody else is too, to be able to have somebody come in and be able to give them some guidance and say, okay, go do this thing. Bring it back. We'll look at it. We'll talk it through. We'll review, and then go do the next thing. But if it's, if I get 20 resumes for interns and I got to go through those and then make a judgment call on which one it is, I may not get the one who's got the most get up and go about them. And that's really kind of the number one thing that we're looking for. I mean, Claire with us, Bryn's the same way. Bryn reached out when she was doing an intern project at JMU, and she did that. We loved her. We offered her part-time work during her senior year. She did that, and she went to LA for a summer. And I told her before she left, I said, before you take another job, you better call me. And we hired her, and here she is 3 years later, and she's getting ready to become one of the owners of the company. I mean, yeah. She's great. And yeah. Claire's the same way. Claire, EMU grad, she reached out to us a week before graduation, just sent us an email and attached her resume and her demo reel. You wouldn't believe how many people don't attach their work. I mean, it's just hey, are you guys hiring? But she sent it, but also she had something else that most other people never submit, is she did animation work, just some stuff that she had played with on her own. And you could tell it wasn't classwork. It was stuff that she was just kind of doing because she liked it. So anyway, I know those are quote unquote soft skills, but man, to me, I think any business owner, regardless of the size of the company, if you've got some gumption about you, your get up and go, whatever you want to call it, that you reach out on your own, that says a lot. That's a big first step for me. Going as far as skills are concerned, I can train that. We can train you how to set up a light and shoot and, 3-point lights and mics and all this stuff and edit. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's some of those soft skills that I'm really looking for that stand out. Because I think most of it, whether you come from JMU or Bridgewater's program or Radford, I mean, you're going to have some semblance of what video production is, or you wouldn't have graduated. You're going to have some basic skills that folks like yourself have taught them. I'm really looking for those, can you work with other people? Can you communicate well? And can you do work on your own? And do you take feedback? I mean, and those aren't things that you can necessarily find out on a resume, but I'll tell you what, if somebody reaches out to me for an internship or a job, and they got their resume together and they send a demo reel and they're very forward about it, I'm more likely to talk to them than if I have to post it myself.
Yeah. That sounds like they're, you know, from what you're saying, there's probably a correlation between them being proactive, sending in samples of their work, and them actually having skills to offer.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably don't get a bunch of slouch work if you're getting someone who's really on the ball getting in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a very valid point. I mean, if somebody, if Claire were to send in her stuff and it was, a picture slideshow that looked like she put together in PowerPoint, yeah, she wouldn't have gotten a call back, right?
Right.
I mean, so there has to be, some, but also if you tell me you're just graduating from school, I'm expecting, I'm not expecting, super way up here.
Right.
I have this kind of expectation of what I'm getting, and she had something a little extra that put her over the top. And we were just happened to be looking to hire somebody, and we wound up not posting for the job because we worked her out for a month and a half, and it was like, no, she's great.
Yeah,
She's done.
yeah, that
She's
totally
it.
makes sense. Yeah. So I guess that for educators like myself, that leaves some questions, maybe both at the undergraduate and the graduate level, of what we should really be emphasizing in our programs. I teach photo and video classes and things like that. Obviously, those matter because you want them to have the skills. But so what advice would you give me as an educator, someone who teaches specific digital media skills?
I think it's in some ways it's this you got to have at least a little bit of self-confidence, or this piece of oh, holy crap, I'm graduating and I got to go get a job.
Yeah, right.
And it, a lot of the people that we've gotten to come through, Bryn's an extrovert, right? She's like me, she'll talk to anybody and she doesn't care. Claire is not that. Claire is high I introvert, super sweet once you get to know her, but she is an introvert. And a lot of the introverts that are in, a lot of the people I feel like in this kind of creative space tend to lean more that way. I feel like they tend to be a little more inside of their head, and they do a little more of the work that way. But a lot of the interns we've gotten are that way. But again, they've just been proactive. And I don't know how to tell you to educate students on that. I just think it's an important skill set that to let people know, hey, if you just sit on your thumbs waiting for people to hire you because you're great, and it's not going to happen. I mean, and I think the thing for me, from my experiences, I think I needed to be humbled right after college, because when I graduated, I was executive producer of a TV program and blah, blah, blah. And I thought I was the best guy, video production guy at Radford, blah, blah, blah. Well, I couldn't get a job to save my life for a year other than writing sports in my hometown newspaper, which was like a death sentence to me.
Uh-huh.
And because I never wanted to go back home, nor did I want to be working in a newspaper. So there was a lot going on there. But I think I needed that humility. But I had this kind of revelation of, yeah, okay, you might have been pretty good, but there's people graduating from every college in Virginia who do similar things, or just not necessarily every college, but there's across the country, there are people who are graduating who are as good, better than you, or maybe even worse, quote unquote, than you, but they're getting jobs and they're all applying for these jobs. So I had this realization that, okay, I'm going to have to bust my butt and try to figure out ways to get connected into people who can teach me skills to be better. And I think, again, I'm thankful for the friend of mine who connected me to those guys who I carried lights for 6 months for nothing. And, it's okay. I'm thankful for that. I think that there's some aspect of hustle that you got to have in order to really do it and get it done, in my opinion. Now, if you go to work for a larger shop, I think, your skills and what you can do and that kind of thing can get you there. I just think that, like you said, proactive is just such a big piece. Mm-hmm. And just really encouraging people that they've got to put themselves out there.
Yeah. Yeah. That totally makes sense. Yeah. So, guess, I'm wondering what kinds of things, given that, with your employees that you've worked with, interns over the time,
Mm-hmm.
do you notice any gaps in skill sets once they've gotten in? Are there any general trends and things that people could be better at, other than being proactive, being able to work with people, take feedback, those kinds of things? I have a colleague who's married to an accountant, and she banned her first year or her new employees from sending emails to clients because they couldn't write an email to save their lives. And so I guess even at that level, I'd be curious what kinds of things you see that are generally weaknesses in people coming in.
I think that's an interesting policy, and I could totally see that. Yeah, I think that. I mean, even when we hired an experienced lady a few years ago, and she worked for us for a couple of years, and she wasn't communicating with clients how I wanted her to via email. So we had to talk that through. I think a big, I'm not sure it's a gap. Well, yeah, it is. It seems like we get people who either want to shoot or they want to edit, which is great, but it's really on the technical piece of it. And I think there's the aspect of the script creation, storytelling piece of it that tends to be lacking. And, and that's, especially for what we do, would they be assigned a role if they were an editor at our place to write? Not normally.
Mm-hmm.
But having some insight into what works, what doesn't work, why this storyline won't flow is really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of that, is it writing?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily per se, but having some of those skills to be able to kind of translate visuals or even written word into visuals is really important. And it feels like that sometimes it's button pushing is good, set up technical pieces are good, but kind of rounding it out with the writing, I don't want to call it a soft skill, the writing, the story building piece is really an important piece.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any other kinds of things, like you said, and this is true, that if you brought somebody in, they wouldn't be doing the scripting and stuff like that. Also, they wouldn't necessarily be doing the management pieces and things like that. But are there other kinds of sort of general managerial skills or other things like that, kind of strategic thinking skills that even someone coming in new who is going to be doing maybe more just sort of lower level production things that would be good for them to know?
And I think this applies to a lot of things, in whether it's production or business or whatever, is love your idea and defend it, but don't be so in love with it that you can't be flexible. And, I think that just applies. I mean, it would have been really easy for us to just say, yeah, we produce TV commercials. And that's what we did for the first, 5 years of Appeal. Was the majority of the work we were doing was TV commercials. In the last 5, no, it's like 80% stuff that never sees a television screen. It's on the web, it's on social media, it's on training videos, it's opening up conferences. So we weren't so narrow-minded to say we do video production, but it's only TV commercials. So, and I think that even any student across the board can get locked in. I want to be an editor. Okay, great. I need somebody that can write, can go help on shoots, and maybe gets to edit every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like, no, I'm an editor, I'm moving on to somebody who's going to be more flexible and willing to kind of step up and say, I'll do whatever the hell I have to do to do the job. And, will you get to edit? Sure. But it may not be the first thing that you get to do.
Yeah.
And I think that that was something that I really felt like I was kind of narrow-minded on, is I want to do this, and not realizing that there was so much more if I just given myself some wiggle room. Okay, I can go do this and work at the TV station and realize that it sucks and it's not what I want to do. And then I can still use those skills to pivot into the next job and go see if that's what works. So yeah. I think just that flexibility piece is just such an important part of, business life, work life, that kind of thing. I just don't think I don't think a lot of us line up perfectly with exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
And And you can really set yourself up to get heartbroken and then get down on yourself and then just say, oh, well, I guess this isn't for me. I'm going to go sell insurance. Not a knock against anybody that sells insurance. So,
Right.
but I just think flexibility is such an important piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just one last quick follow up in
Sure.
case we missed anything, and then Sam and Ben, if you have anything you'd like to do on this area before moving to the last one. You basically throughout our whole conversation been giving a ton of really useful advice to not just to us and especially me, who've been in the ivory tower much longer than these others of my colleagues, but also, you know, to the students here. And I'm just wondering if there's anything else you would offer students by way of just general kind of career advice that you haven't already gone over. You know, if you're starting to enter the, you know, this kind of area of work, what would you recommend?
Oh gosh. I mean, to me, it's just be prepared to grind, you know, and I think that, I mean, I had rose colored glasses thinking, you know, 5 years I'll be doing whatever and producing blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Chicago or New York or whatever. And, you know, I wound up falling in love with the Shenandoah Valley, loving we were working with and the clients we were doing. And I was doing what I wanted. And, you know, one of the big things was, well, I want to travel the world. Well, I've actually been lucky enough to be able to travel quite a few places across the globe and across the country by doing video work, by living where I want to live. So, so that's been kind of cool. I think honestly, just preparing yourself to grind and knowing you're going to have to work at it and being open to criticism and, you know, taking that as growth opportunity. And then again, being flexible, you know, understanding that you may want to be here, but you may need to do something way over here first to get you there. But you also may find along the way that you wind up doing something you love more than what you thought. I never in a million years, if you told me when I graduated from college in 1999 that I was going to be either owning a company A, B, the lead salesperson, the only salesperson in that company, and hardly ever touching any video equipment, I would have said, you're crazy. That's not Andy, and that's not what his life's going to be. But honestly, I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I love what I do. I love the interaction that I get to have with the clients. I love the interaction I have with my team on the production side and helping them craft the vision and then letting them do what they love to create it and then being able to deliver it to the client and delight them. So I think just for me and my personality, just kind of having that flexibility along the way and taking opportunities as they came that felt right was really a big win for me and has been so far. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, if it feels right, do it. And if there's some reason that it doesn't feel right or roadblocks get thrown up, don't do it. I trust my gut.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Yeah, thanks so much. Sam, Ben, anything else kind of in this direction before we let you get on to some other things?
Yeah, I don't have anything, Scott, thanks. But so Sam, if you want to continue, if you have a last question or something like that, that'll be fine.
No, I mean, I think that, you know, we had an unfair question that we asked. We spoke with, her name has just fled from my head, Ben. Who did we talk to the other day? It ran away. Johanna Bergdahl. We talked to her the other day, and I had a specific question about our curriculum. But I don't know that I need to ask that, because I think in many ways you touched on, and Scott was able to sort of ask questions about, we have different learning objectives. So, you know, I thank you very much for your time. I think you've given us a lot to think about and to talk about in relationship to, you know, when we're working with our students and when our students are working with clients during their client phases. You know, I reserve the right to call you again and pick your brain some more. And I'm sure that I'll see you at some of the events when we have the happy hours again. So,
yeah.
But thank you very much, Andy. I really appreciate it. And I know that you know, Bryn speaks. She's super excited. I wasn't sure. I wasn't gonna. She sort of sneakily mentioned it to me the other day. That about her promotion. So that's really, I'm excited for her, and I'm excited for you all. That's really great. So.
Yeah, we're really excited and lucky to have her, and you know, we think she's a big part of the reason we've had the last few years of growth that we have, and we want to you know, not just continue that, but want to keep her on board to see where this thing goes. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate her and what you all are doing for her. And thanks for this opportunity. And by all means, feel free to reach out whenever. I'm happy to discuss whatever you wish, and help in any way that I can to help you guys out. Okay.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go